Hello and welcome back to my channel. A few weeks back I posted the video about the flying shaper origin on the bench pilot. And one of the things I did there is that I flattened a little piece of wood from both sides and then I made a little tray out of it. And one viewer asked in the comments, like, how did you actually trace the shape of that piece of wood so you could then remove it accordingly with the shape origin, like this here, right? So this is a mini cookie slab from an olive tree and I cut out this. So you see that it's pretty much the shape of the slab. And so the question was like, how do you get this shape into the shaper origin? Now my response was, well, I have a video showing how to do that by you taking a picture of this slab and then importing it into a computer, and I show how you do it on the computer with a software where you can trace that. That's one option to do it, but it got me thinking. I was like, it's actually, I am also tracing those shapes in another way, and I've never shown that. And it's a technique where you can do it on device, on the shaper origin, so you don't need a photo, you don't need a computer, you don't need a software. It's actually all on the shaper origin with a shaper origin. So I did this exactly with that technique. This shape that you see here, I traced it all with the shaper origin. Why don't we go into the workshop and I'll show you there exactly how to do that, then we'll do a debrief.
If you want to trace an object, make sure to attach it really well to your work surface. Here I'm using double-sided tape. The next step is that you need to take a long router bit. So here I'm using my own 5mm bit, which is about 75 millimeters long. So it needs to be one that is long enough that you can mount it on your shaper origin. So it will actually be longer than the base. It will stick out from below. Then you put your spindle in the shaper origin and you can see here that a part of this router bit is sticking out below the base. When using this technique, please unplug your spindle so you don't turn it on by accident while you do the tracing. Then set the right bit size. That's important because you will need that later on to calculate the offset of the tracing. It's not necessary that you do the Z-touch because you're not going to cut anything with this bit. To do the tracing, you first need to go into the Create setting, and there you select the pen item, and then you move your shaper origin to the edge of the object where you want to start tracing. And when you feel the block, when you feel that the bit is hitting your object, you start adding a point. And then you add, in small, very incremental steps, you add additional points along the shape of your object. Obviously, the more points that you set, the more precise your shape will be. So it depends a little bit on how much precision you want. When you reach the end of this shape, you click on the first point, and that is how then the shaper origin will finalize this shape, and you can use it. So now when you go into the cut menu, which here is on the pilot, but it doesn't have to be the pilot. You can use this if you don't have the pilot. Here I set like an inline cut, and I set an offset. Now it's important, we have used here a 5mm bit. That means that the offset, you will have an offset of 2.5mm, right? Because the place where the bit hits your object is 2.5mm distance from the center of the shaper origin spindle. And that's why it's important to set the right bit size, because that way you can calculate the offset. If we set here an offset of 2.5mm, we will cut exactly on the edge of this object. That's not what I want. That's why I set here to cut an offset of 12.5mm. So I leave a 1 centimeter, 10mm offset to the edge of my object of my slab. For this large pocket cut, I'm using my own 25mm bit, the Beast, to increase the speed. And the rest is just cutting and cutting and cutting, and I will spare you with the details.
All right, here we are back, and this is the little tray that we cut out with the shape that we traced with the shape origin. Let's have a closer look. So here you can see that it worked really well. You can see how this shape really follows the line of this cookie slab, with one exception. You can see here, here I screwed up, because when I traced it here with this technique, with a bit here, I really entered deep into this place, which was a mistake. I should have likely just skipped this and then took this point here as the next marker. But I went inside, and so that's why you can see here this spike. So that's something to pay attention to when you use this technique, that you actually trace the shape you want. Now I could remove this here with a chisel or something, but it's not that important. So that was it. Now, one important thing is that to use this technique, you need a bit that is really long, so it sticks out under the shape origin. And ideally it would be really thin, right? So I took here, for this trial here, I took the 5mm router bit that I sell myself. So that's 5mm, it's pretty thick, right? Ideal, it would be that you have something really thin, like 1mm or something like that. Because that way you could be much more precise. If you have a shape where you really want to be precise, that would be much more interesting. But I don't have such a thin bit that is so long, right? Because the thinnest shank that you have on the shape origin is 1/8 of an inch. And then it would have to be a really long bit where at the end you have like a thin piece that you can use to trace. And that got me thinking, maybe that's, I'm always looking for ideas on new things to create for the shape origin community. Would it be interesting to produce such a bit where it's like a bit, but it has no blade? It's really long, so you can put it in the shape origin, 1/8 of an inch shank, and a really thin point. Like the end, basically, the tip is really thin. And that way you can trace this easily. And you could even use that to create a grid, right? On the shape origin, you have these new features where you can like take a grid or a rectangle with the tip with your bit, with your shape origin, right? And that's a technique where you lower it and then you can just touch it. It pretty much is what we did, but only for rectangle. So it could be something where you just put it into your 1/8 of an inch collet, and it's long, it's a very thin tip, and you can use it to trace whatever you want. And that could be really cheap, right? Because you could use really cheap materials. It doesn't have to be solid carbide or anything crazy, like just very like the cheapest metal available, because it will not have any like strain or anything like that. So I don't know, maybe that's something to think about. Well, what do you think, right? Leave it in the comments. Like if you think that's a good idea, maybe I could see to have that produced and then sell it on my Etsy store. And if not, I'll just not do it. Well, I hope this technique was helpful to you. If it was, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, to subscribe to my channel. See you around.